she's back again. Mary Jane is somebody who's been an entrepreneur, a freelance journalist who launched her own marketing company in 1987. She embraced that alter ego of the phone lady, which she uses in 2006, and has worked with over 700 clients, training over 14,000 individuals on how to communicate more effectively and grow their income. And she's been profiled by everyone from the Wall Street Journal, National Post, CBC, CTV, Global, Globe and Mail, and all kinds of different media publications, including even being covered by this hour 22 minutes in a skit. So you know you've made it when you make it onto Canadian satire TV. So she's an author on sales and telephone communication skills, and also operates a blog on it. So among all those accolades, we know that we have somebody who is very knowledgeable that we can offer as a panelist today. And we're very, very excited to present Mary Jane Pops for a discussion on what she calls the rules of engagement. So thanks, Mary Jane, for joining us this morning.
Lovely to be here. And I love that introduction that you give, Greg. I'm hoping you'll send me those 2 introductory slides.
For sure, I will.
Yeah, they're great. Okay, and am I able to share my screen?
I will make it so that you can
make it
right now.
Okay, super. Oops.
And now you should be able to.
Okay, so hang on a second here. There's something I need to have open. Okay, I'm going to try that again. Here we go. And all right, so just going to make sure I'm in the right place. Thanks everybody for being here today. I'm going to admit that I struggled with this presentation because I kept making it longer and longer and longer. And so finally, I said, okay, I am simply going to give it some structure by calling it the 5 rules of engagement. And I'm hoping that if you've got questions or comments, my preference is always that you come off mic or use chat to ask me those questions as we go through the information. Don't save them up till the end. So here we go. I'm going to start with what the word engagement means. So it comes to us from the 1620s French, engager, meaning to pledge. And it was adapted roughly around the same time into English, and it came to mean a legal or moral obligation and a formal promise. So when we take on the task of engaging our prospects and our clients, we are making a formal promise. But there's also a pledge involved that I'm going to share with you. First, I'm going to give you a quick view of my agenda this morning. So I'm going to tell you a story to get us started. I'm going to talk about your highest priority. And then these are the 5 rules I landed on. There is a pledge. We're going to talk about how to inspire conversation, how to leave the booth, how to educate, and how to follow up. I'm going to give you a few resources to walk away with. And then, of course, there's questions and comments. But as I've said, please ask any questions or comments as we go along. That is best. So the story goes back to when I first became an entrepreneur, which does take me back to 1987. And at that time, when you quit a job with a pension and started a business, people did not congratulate you. They thought you were just right out of your mind. So there wasn't the same kind of supports available for small business owners and entrepreneurs in those days, for sure. And I started that business with a lot of confidence, partly because I was 27 and you always have a lot of confidence in your 20s, but also because I had spent a great deal of time as a journalist. I'd spent a lot of time on the phone doing interviews for magazines and newspapers and so on. And I really believed that once I talked to people about this amazing company I was starting, that the sales would just happen, that there wasn't any particularly new skill I needed to develop there. Of course, fairly quickly, I found out that that was incorrect. And that led me to understand that my priority needed to change in terms of what I was going to do each day in my business. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm hoping that in chat, you can answer this question for me from your perspective. What is your highest priority as a business owner and artisan? Or put another way, what one skill, if you developed and did it in an excellent fashion, would have the greatest positive impact on your financial success? So if you can put any ideas that you have there in chat, I will take a look at that. Just going to open chat here so that I can see it clearly. Any thoughts or ideas there from anybody about what that highest priority is for you and your business? Hospitality, great. Thank you, Dave. Anybody else have any ideas there? Selling my product, Jude, great. Thank you. Timeliness, Dave again, great. Thank you, Dave. Okay, well, I'm going to take you back again to 1987 in my living room where I was really struggling to figure out what was involved in selling, in making sure that people understood the company and also were supporting it, becoming clients. And I realized that my highest priority was to consistently introduce my potential customers to my work in a way that was comfortable for me and to move them through my sales process. So there's a couple of things here that are really important. Often when it comes to engaging our customers and our prospects, we get a lot of information. We get bombarded with things that feel aggressive, uncomfortable. That's not what I want to do. And so we pull back and we become more reactive than proactive. And what I want you to know is that when you are selling your product, you get to do it your way. Authenticity is the most important thing that you can bring to any sales process. So there is a pledge that I created for myself way back in the late 80s. And it was a pledge that for many years sat on my wall next to my phone that reminded me each day what I needed to do to grow my business. And here it is. It's important for me to let ideal potential customers know I exist. They cannot make the best possible decisions for themselves if they have not, at the very least, viewed my work. So my job is to make sure that people see what I do. That's your job, is to make sure that all the people that could possibly be interested in your work get to see your work. You don't have the power to make them buy it, but you do have the power to make sure they see it, so that when they sit down to make a purchasing decision, you are there. One of the things that I realized was that if I didn't make every effort to let my potential customers know I existed, I was actually cheating them out of making the best possible decision for themselves. And that motivated me day after day and year after year, including today. So for over 30 years, this pledge that I've taken as a business owner has really moved me forward to always be looking for opportunities to engage my potential customers, because I don't want to cheat them out of their ability to make the best decision for themselves. So I always am introducing myself to my potential customers in a very professional way, always keeping in mind that their job is to cultivate new ideas and artists. And that's the case. All of us that are looking to buy craft and art, that's part of our job, if you will, to make that happen, whether we're looking at it for ourselves or whether we're looking at it for others as gifts, or whether we're looking at it corporately. It's part of what we do, and we want to know what's out there, what's available, what our choices are. So this pledge to always be introducing your potential customers to your work is the first step in creating how you're going to continually create engagement. So the second step, the second rule of engagement, is to inspire a conversation. And what we want to understand about that is that communication with our potential customers, communication isn't saying something. Communication is being heard. This is my favorite communication quote by far. What this means is that when we are talking to our customers and our potential customers, it's not up to them to figure out what we're saying. We have to figure out how to communicate with them in a way that they will understand. That is our full responsibility. And it is a big responsibility. How do we do that? How do we make sure that the words we use, the presentation we put together, how do we make sure that it's speaking to them in a way that you will be heard and understood? Well, one of the things that we want to do is we don't want to tell our customers everything all at once. We always want to be working towards making them curious to learn more. In other words, when we give someone information that sparks curiosity, they lean in and start asking questions. And that puts us in a great position to have that engagement that we're looking for, those conversations that we want to have. But the other part of this is there is a backstory going on for everyone. Everybody's got a backstory that we don't necessarily know what's influencing their decisions. And while we can never know everything about what's going on in the background of individuals, there are some things today that are common among all of us. So I'm going to introduce you to a few of those. This first one, decision fatigue. I don't know how many of you have heard of this phrase before, but what it relates to is that we are currently in a stage of human history where we are making more decisions every day than ever before. And this is certainly because of technology. And in this last year or so, it's also compounded because of the pandemic. So the research that has been done in the US and in Europe indicates that we each make about 35,000 decisions every day. I do, you do, Greg does. 35,000. Now, when I read that number, I didn't believe it. I thought, that's not possible. I'm not making that many decisions a day. So I decided to walk through the next day and see if I could figure out how that was happening. And it turned out it was pretty easy to get to 35,000 decisions. One thing to consider, when we drive, we make a decision roughly every 20 seconds. So rear view, side view, slow down, speed up, turn signal, change lane, etc. So we make a lot of decisions when we're driving our car. If, for example, you participate in any social media, one of the reasons that we get lost in social media, or we can get lost in social media, is the scroll. The scroll is consistently making us make decisions. So as you're scrolling, you're going, no, 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 no. Oh, and then you decide to stop. And when you decide to stop, then you're deciding to click on something, comment on something, share something, watch a video, etc. So if you spend even 15 minutes on a social media platform, you can easily make 300 to 500 decisions in that space. And I'm not even including making meals and deciding what to wear and all kinds of things there. So getting to the 35,000 decisions a day is very, very easy to do. Why am I spending time with this? Well, for really the first time ever, when we're talking to prospects and customers, they actually really want us to help them make decisions, because they're experiencing decision fatigue. So they really want the experience to include our help in making the decision. If we don't do that, often what happens is the person says, well, let me get back to you, right? So if we say, well, what do you think? Or what would you like to do next? Or, that kind of question, they will go, I'm going to think about it for a while. And that just stalls the whole process, or you lose that opportunity altogether. So really what you want to do is help clients make decisions. It needs to be part of guiding them through your process. So especially when you are talking to retailers, and you're having that conversation and they're interested, you can hear that they're interested. That's where the conversation has gone. You can say, well, based on everything we've talked about, or based on everything we've discussed, the next step is for me to, maybe it's send a larger portfolio, or drop off a sample, or even bring product for a temporary display to see what happens. But you want to have the language there that the consumer or the retailer, that you're helping them make the decision. That's the support they need today. Now, when you are using the phone to reach out to people and create engagement, know that historically, It's been over 40 years since Bell introduced cheaper long distance to businesses throughout North America. So the telemarketing industry has been part of our lives for over 40 years now. And of course, we all know that that industry has changed dramatically and is really now a criminal situation that's happening. So all of us are defensive when we receive an unexpected call from someone we don't know. It's never personal. It's part of our culture now that we feel that way when we receive an unexpected call. And so you want to acknowledge that if you are reaching out to someone by phone and you've never reached out to them before, you're going to hear that note of defensiveness at the beginning of the call. But part of your job then is to dissolve that defensiveness and move towards creating conversation and engagement. One thing we can do to help with that, to help have stronger conversations, is to acknowledge that everybody wants things on their own schedule. I have a colleague that calls this Netflix culture. I don't have Netflix, so I didn't think of calling it that, but it does relate to that. So unlike my years of growing up, when I needed to be in front of a television or a radio in order to hear a program, that's not the world we're living in anymore, right? We can access any television program or movie or piece of music or anything like that on our own schedule. So we're able to really control all of our time. And that allows us to believe that any interruption is unappreciated. And that's what's happened to phone conversations, is that unexpected phone call is often perceived as an unappreciated intrusion. So for the last 2 years, what I've experienced is that if I schedule the call, even if it's with someone I don't know very well, if I schedule that call as a meeting, even a 10-minute meeting, I create stronger engagement and a better conversation because it's a meeting that we've agreed to. And the way that you can do that is through an appointment app. So the one that I have chosen is Calendly, but I'm not advocating that you use it. I just needed a graphic for that corner of the slide. If you did a search online for best appointment apps of 2020, you'll get a whole list. There's one called Acuity, there's one called 10 to 8. And basically what these allow you to do is approach someone, a gallery or a retailer or even a specific individual, and send them a link that allows them to view your calendar, compare it to their calendar, and they get to choose a time to have the 10 or 15-minute conversation with you. So they feel in control, and when the call happens, you have their full attention, and that makes a big difference. So to give you a visual of this, if I was going to organize a 15-minute conversation with Greg and I sent him the link, this is what he would see when he clicked on the link. So all of the blue days are days when I have availability. So he could click on any of those and then compare those to his calendar. So in this sample, he's going to click on the 29th of the month. And when he does that, he gets to see that I'm not available that morning, but I have availability between noon and 1:45. So he can click on any of these slots, and the meeting will appear in both his calendar and mine. Thank you, William Scott. That's great. Appreciate that. He's put the link in in chat for us. Thanks very much. Now, the calendar can be Outlook, it can be Google, it can be iCal. It doesn't matter what the calendar systems are, it will still appear. And over here, I've indicated how the meeting's going to take place. So in this case, I'm going to call Greg at this number, but it could say Greg is going to call me, or it could be the Zoom link. You have complete freedom there to decide how the meeting is going to take place. Now, in the 2 years that I've been using this, it has made me a lot of money because it eliminates phone tag. It gets the full attention of the person you're booking the call with. And it's made for much, much better focused and efficient conversations. Any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in chat. The other thing that has changed dramatically in the last couple of years is we don't know who is checking what when. I know that sounds sort of like an Abbott and Costello skit, but the idea is that there are individuals that are no longer checking voicemail. There are individuals that check email constantly or text. And there are individuals that pay closer attention to social media than any other method of communication. So that makes it really tricky when you want to engage your target market. What are they doing? Where are they? Where will they get your message? So for this example, I am using voicemail, email, and LinkedIn, but it could be voicemail, text, and Instagram, or voicemail, email, and Facebook. You choose what the social media platform might be for your audience. But the idea is, in order to reach somebody today, you actually have to approach them from all 3 channels. So the first step is to leave the inspiring voicemail message. And the reason I recommend this is that the sound of our voice has a huge impact on the other individual. It's the sound of our voice that is the really authentic piece here. This is you're hearing me, so you can hear my enthusiasm. You can hear my desire to have a good conversation with you. You get a feeling that you know me based on the fact that you're listening to my voice. But once you leave that message, you can, and in that message, you can say, I'm also going to take the liberty of sending you an email in case that's easier for you. So when you send an email, the subject line is RE : my voicemail earlier today. So if the person picks up the email first, they know there's a voicemail, and from the voicemail, they know there's an email to look for in their inbox. But also the RE : is still regarded by the majority of spam filters as an ongoing conversation. So using the RE : at this moment in time, you stand a greater likelihood of that email getting into their inbox so that they can view it. And then depending on the social media platform, either follow them or send them a note to connect so that you're also reaching out to them on that 3rd level that they might be checking more frequently, which is social media. Now, in my world, it is a LinkedIn invitation. And here's why. When we receive that kind of invitation, we look here at how many mutual connections we have. And that's the same on many social media platforms. And that idea of mutual connections provides credibility. So again, it makes the person more comfortable to engage with us in conversation. Any thoughts or questions, please feel free to put them into chat. Now, the third rule of engagement that I wanted to mention is something I'm calling leave the booth. Now, I know that we're living in very different times, so a lot of your activity is virtual. But the idea is that being proactive in these settings is essential. Of course, all of us, myself included, would rather that the interested and the curious declare themselves by coming to us. But again, if we go back to that pledge at the beginning, our job is to make sure that individuals that are part of our target market, that we approach them, that we make sure they know that we are a valuable choice, that we exist. So in a trade show setting, whether it's virtual or otherwise, you want to have at your disposal open-ended questions that you feel comfortable using. Again, remember, you want to use your authentic voice that you can use to engage retailers and consumers. And it's not an aggressive thing. It's a conversation, right? It's engagement. So it might be, what are the most popular items in your store at the moment? So it's not pushy. You are expressing your curiosity in their business and how their business is working, and you're going to learn from that. Or if it's a consumer, you might say, who are you shopping for today? Are they shopping for themselves? Are they shopping for a gift? That kind of thing. Get that conversation started. What is your starting point? How are you enjoying the show? Is a very general question, but again, very non-threatening, so it gets that conversation started. Or, what's caught your attention today? Again, non-threatening and easy for the other person to respond and for you to begin a conversation. Now, last month, when I did a webinar for retailers specifically, one of the things that came up in a pre-webinar survey was their frustration that the individuals that visited their store didn't understand all of the work and value that went into the crafts and the artwork that they were viewing. That they didn't understand the connection between what goes into the raku and therefore why it's priced where it is. And they wanted to be able to educate the visitors to their store differently or more so that there was that connection. And you can also participate in that, of course. So what can you do to educate your buyers and your retailers' buyers on the value of your work so that there's more engagement around your work in the store or in the gallery? So certainly brochures. Now, again, I realize that some of this is about the space that's available to you in a gallery or a store setting, but that's the engagement of the staff with the gallery or the store. So that's the conversation you want to have with them. Is there the ability to have brochures right beside your work, near your work, so that it's easy for visitors to read more about how you create your raku? Or is there an opportunity to have a tablet, an iPad or something, again, near your work, showing the many layered process of creating raku, or having information there on the history of raku in the world, coming from Japan, etc. If that video option isn't available, is there an option to have an audio component of some description? near the display, something that the buyers to the store or the individuals at the gallery can choose to listen to? Or can photographs be part of the display? So I'm choosing raku as an option simply because I have a daughter who's a raku artist, so at least I can sound a little bit like I know what I'm talking about. But the idea is in the display, is it possible to show how the raku is fired and the temperatures it reaches, and how the horsehair is added at the high temperatures, and all of that? Is there any opportunity to show that? And is there a place to include your bio? Anything about how long you've been an artist, any awards you've received, where your work is displayed, anything like that. Especially this year when our travel and our shopping is going to be local, and the buy local movement is as strong as it is. The bio about where you're from is going to be a valuable thing. So how is that communicated with visitors to a gallery or to a store? And is there any opportunity for a mini demonstration or even a class? Is that something that store owners or gallery owners can invite people to attend online with you? Can you spend time at the gallery or at the store when foot traffic is going to be healthy? Is that a possibility, so that you are on site on occasion and having questions with the people that stop by to view your work? Again, it's about engagement obviously for the people that are doing the shopping, but also engagement with the retailer. So the retailer is a partner in terms of getting your work in front of your target market. So making sure that you are engaging them in conversation on a regular basis and offering to help them in any way they see valuable to have people come and enjoy their space. So again, I wanted to remind you that in terms of the retailers themselves, wanting tools that help their visitors understand the value of the work in their stores was something they were really interested in. So how can you fit in there and create more engagement there in terms of your work, but also in terms of working with the retailer? And finally, I want to talk about follow up. So you've talked to someone about your work and they've expressed a lot of interest, and maybe you've sent them a portfolio, or maybe you've dropped by and been able to show them samples or whatever the case might be. How do you move that conversation? How do you continue to have that conversation? So I wanted to share with you a story that's several years old now, but it relates to a workshop I gave. This was for the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And it included a section where I talked about the importance of follow-up. And this is a testimonial I received the next day from Steve Foran here in Halifax. So he says, I took Mary Jane's advice from a 90-minute workshop and got a return on investment of 5,000%. I really laughed when I read that. But the idea was that he had a potential client that he'd talked to who'd expressed a lot of interest in hiring him to do workshops for their team. And Steve had done up a proposal and he had followed up, he thought, enough, and hadn't heard anything back. And so then he just stopped. He decided that not hearing back was no. And I want to say that that's not the case. And one of the reasons that we do that, one of the reasons that we stop following up, is that we confuse the word persistence with the word pest. So Steve really thought that if he kept calling, he was going to be a pest. And the word pest comes to us from 1550 Middle French, and it does mean a plague or pestilence, noxious or troublesome person or thing. So obviously not something that we want to be. But persistence, which comes roughly from the same time period and from Middle French, means lasting, enduring, and permanent. I think the other words that we can consider here are responsible, accountable, and reliable. So we want the people that we choose to work with to be persistent. We want our doctor to be persistent. We want our plumber to be persistent. We want our bookkeeper to be persistent. I'm sure you could share with me other individuals and professions that you work with that you want them to be persistent. It is a characteristic that we associate with people who are professionals and experts who are caring and take their work seriously. So it is a characteristic that we value. So after my workshop, when Steve followed up with that particular client, they said, yes, of course, we do want to do these workshops. Let's get that date chosen. It just took that one more call. And basically what you want to know is that it isn't no until they tell you no. Prior to that, their silence, or in today's language, their ghosting of you, is about, again, the backstory, the things that we don't know that are going on in the background. And you want to take full responsibility for keeping that engagement that you've started. You want to take full responsibility for keeping that engagement going. So other examples, a client of mine who had 4 young children and owned 3 franchises. And one day a landscape company knocked on her door and asked her if she'd like a quote. And she said yes. And he did the quote and he dropped it off. She never heard from them again. And when she was telling me this story, she was saying, you know, I'm so busy. I really need them to follow up. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. I can't add that to my to-do list. If they want me to be their customer, if they want to work with me, they need to follow up. So I could go on and on with several more stories that relate to this. But as you know, in terms of your process and your creating engagement with your retailers, your galleries, and your consumers, you want to know that following up is really key to engagement and increasing your revenue. And what we get stuck on, I think, is the language of following up. So when you're following up with someone, you don't want to do that with a close-ended question. You want to make sure that you're asking an open-ended question to keep the engagement going. So if you're following up on the fact that you've sent someone brochures or your portfolio, any of those things, you want to start with, what are your thoughts on our discussion last week about my pottery, particularly the raku? So what are your thoughts? That's where the engagement is. What did they think about while they were looking at the portfolio, right? Or what questions do you have from our discussion last week about my pottery, particularly the raku? So they may not have any questions, but because it's an open-ended question, it's going to keep the engagement going. They're going to respond to that in some way that keeps that conversation going. Now, again, we don't know the backstory. So when things go quiet, when you're not getting any response at all, the thing is to reach out and ask what's happened. But it doesn't work to simply say, well, what's happened here? Why are you not getting back to me? This question works beautifully 85 to 90% of the time. How does including my work in your store fit in with your current priorities? So what you want to know is, where has this gone on your to-do list? What has happened to the great discussion we had? Where is it in your priorities now? And what's interesting is the majority of people will respond to that question. One of the reasons they haven't been getting back to you is that they haven't had anything new to tell you for whatever reason, right? So something's happened at the store, something's happened to the budget, they've been short-staffed, they haven't reviewed your portfolio carefully. It could be anything at all. It could be something personal, some health issue in their family. It could be anything at all. And asking this question frees them up to say, well, this is still important to me, but I need another 2 months before I'm going to make decisions about adding new product to the store. Well, now you know. Now you don't have to keep contacting them as follow-up. You know that you should follow up with them towards the end of May or mid-May, because that would be the 2-month period. And you could write back and say, that's great. Are you comfortable with my following up with you towards the end of May? So you're keeping that engagement going. And you want to remember that it's your job to keep the communication going. It's not their job to get back to you. We like to think that it is their job, but it's your job to keep that communication going and bring it to a conclusion for both of you, so that it isn't up in the air and undecided. So I wanted to make sure that I provided you with a few additional resources, because as I said, when I was working to prepare this deck, there was so much that I wanted to include. And one of the pieces is certainly about creating engagement on social media and how to do that without it taking up all of your time, and how to choose the best platforms to display your work and create the right conversations with your target market. So I wanted to give you a resource about that. And it's a local company here in Halifax, Twerp Communications, owned by Anita Kirkbride. And she offers a free course that she's going to be starting again in April, called the No BS Social Media Blueprint. And basically what happens on this course is you choose a social media platform that you really want to master or you want to know more about. And you walk through this course focused only on that one platform, and you get to learn everything you need to know about that platform and create a blueprint for yourself of how you can best interact with your target market there. So I'm including that here because it is a free course. It is starting in April, gets great reviews, and it really is focused on one platform at a time. So you learn the maximum there is to learn about specific platforms. The next piece is, oh, great. Thanks, William. And I'm also going to send this slide deck to Greg to share with you so that you have it. And so the links will be there. So that's great that they're in chat. Thanks for that. So newsletters and blogs are also a great way to engage and keep a conversation going. And also, you know, obviously videos, white papers, ebooks, any of those things, digital postcards, there's so much that you can do. I have been writing a blog now for, I guess, 11 years. And just this year, I moved it from weekly to every 2 weeks. But it took about 5 years to get traction on that. But when it does go out, it always results in response and or work for me. Somebody receives it and either goes, right, of course, I should contact Mary Jane, or they share it with someone they've been talking to that has mentioned that they could use some help that I can provide. So it's a really great way to engage in conversation, a newsletter as well, all of these things. And I'm directing you to Linda Daly again because it's free resources. So Linda's not looking for any new clients. She's maxed out on clients, but she's an extremely generous individual. So at her website, you'll find numerous resources on blogging, on newsletters, on ways to get information in front of your target market. And also, if you want to create a sales process that you can count on, something that you follow day by day, week by week, so that you have the ability to know that your revenue is going to be where you want it to be. If you go to inspireconversation.com, you can book a free consultation with me. And of course, at that time, you can see how the calendar system works, because it is there, and that's what you would be using to book that conversation. And I'd be delighted to have that conversation with you. So there's an option there. So I'm going to stop there, leaving 5 minutes for any questions or comments, anything that you want to know more about, or a question or a comment, an idea that you came here with that you were hoping I would address, but that I didn't, because again, I was really stymied in creating the slide deck. And I started making it and realizing, well, this is going to be 2.5 hours and I have an hour. So yeah, if any questions at all, gladly address them. Hi, Greg.
Hey, that was great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Any questions occur to you, Greg, while I was going through that?
It's so much good advice, and you gave us some good resources. What I was going to ask you is, do you have any books that you recommend that have like really influenced you and inspired you, whether, you know, directly related to sales or not?
Yes. And they tend not to be books that are related to sales. And the reason is that so many books about sales talk about a process that's aggressive and uncomfortable for me. I'm really about finding your authentic voice there. But I just finished reading Seth Godin's book and on the process and the practice. He calls it the practice. I call it a process. And it is about your art and how you get your art out there. And I was so inspired by this book. I just finished it and did a an online book club about it, but it's tremendously inspiring and beautiful to read.
Nice.
And then this year I also, or I guess the end of last year, I read The One Thing. And it is about figuring out what is the one thing that can indeed, that if you focus on it and perfect it, will make your business the strongest possible business. And it's an easy read, and I got a lot out of it as well.
Nice.
Great question. Thank you.
Great recommendations. I've heard of Seth Godin a lot, and I've never personally got around to reading his books, so maybe now's the time.
Yeah, it's a great book. All of his stuff is good, but this was really about, and he does focus on the independent artist. That's really his thing. And great advice and great inspiration for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, no questions in the Q&A that are coming in through, so I assume everybody's happy.
Yeah, I hope so. Everybody very welcome. Thank you for being here and showing up. And again, any questions or comments, don't hesitate. Would be delighted to connect with you on LinkedIn if that's a social media platform that you're using. And yeah, enjoy your day.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mary Jane. And anybody interested, we have another session coming up at 1 o'clock, and it's going to be about 2 hours long, two-parted session about digital platforms. We'll be having Nova Scotia Business present their guide to using virtual trade shows, and then talking about that and having a discussion about it. There's a question that maybe you want to answer. Is LinkedIn good for artists? Do a lot of people use LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's I have found, because I end up doing a lot of research for clients, that it's important to be there, even if it's not where you're selling. It's an important place to be connected.
Yeah, just a place where you can discover lots of different potential connections.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Mary Jane, and we'll see everyone else this afternoon, and have a great day.
Okay, you too. Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.